Great Tuesday afternoon to you guys. Welcome to the Seth Joyner Show. So much to get to today. Andre Reed hopefully will be joining me today. He seems to be a little bit technically challenged, so hopefully he can work it out on his end. Hey, if not, we'll just do a talk to him Tuesday, and I'll take you guys' questions. We'll chat about the Eagles. We'll chat about, everything that's going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, things that are going on with the Texans, just a lot going on. So you guys can just fire off your questions. I think this week we're going to do a giveaway. We'll talk about it throughout the show. A mini helmet and autographed Eagles football. You guys can follow over at Seth Joyner Show on Instagram, Seth Joyner on Twitter, and you can also follow me over on Facebook at Seth Joyner and at Seth Joyner Show on Facebook as well. What you got to do is preferably go over to the Instagram page, the Seth Joyner Show on Instagram. Tie in 3 other people, ask them to tie in 3 other people, go over to the YouTube page and follow at the Instagram page. And on Friday, we will select one winner to receive a autographed Seth Joyner helmet and Seth Joyner football. We'll start getting back to our giveaways each week as we move forward. That being said, let's chat a little bit about, our Philadelphia Eagles and where they are. A lot of information floating around about the Philadelphia Eagles and where they are and what they're trying to do. Carson Wentz is pretty much still not traded yet. And everyone seems to be a little dismayed at why the trade hasn't taken place. Per Ron Jaworski on 97.5 The Fan last week, he said that the best offer that the Philadelphia Eagles have received has been a 2 and a 2 for Carson Wentz. Obviously, the Eagles would prefer to receive a first-round draft pick in compensation for Carson, but that is yet to happen. Also, you've got the Chicago Bears supposedly are in the mix. All of these things are pretty much just reports. A lot of he said, she said, a whole lot of speculation as to what's going to happen. I'm not sure whether the Eagles are really trying to get this thing done before the new year, the new NFL year begins, or whether they're trying to get it done, after the new year begins. I know that in March, they've got a $10 million bonus that is due to Carson Wentz. Not sure whether they're trying to pay that and then trade him, or figure out a way to have another team pick up that $10 million bonus. But right now, where we are is, Carson Wentz is still a part of the Philadelphia Eagles football team. There's just a lot of information swirling out there about, where he's going to wind up and when he's going to be leaving and so on and so forth. Haven't heard anything from Carson as of yet. Haven't heard anything from his representatives. And have really heard very little from the Philadelphia Eagles on this matter as well. I don't expect to hear anything from either side. I think that, a lot of times when someone's silent, their silence speaks volumes for what it is that they want. Carson Wentz has had, almost every opportunity to try to figure out, how to speak to the Philadelphia fans, the city of Philadelphia, and let them know what his thought process is about this whole thing. But sometimes, it's better not to say anything. And I just think he's at a point right now where he wants out. That's pretty evident. You hear about Jalen Hurts getting the wide receivers, planning on getting the wide receivers together for a little passing camp. And that also tells me that, he's beginning to step into the role as the new starting quarterback and the leader of this football team when you start doing things like that. Because in my mind, if you're going to make that move most certainly would be a move that he would make in lockstep and in concert with Carson Wentz, if Carson Wentz was going to be here and Jalen Hurts was going to be here. Somehow, some way, I get the impression that both Jalen Hurts knows, both Carson Wentz knows, and the Philadelphia Eagles, more importantly, know that Carson Wentz, one way or another, is not going to be with this franchise when the 2021 season kicks off. I think it's a good move by Jalen. I think it's a leadership move. We've watched Jalen Hurts throughout this offseason. He has spoken more than Carson Wentz has spoken this offseason about what he needs to do to get himself prepared for the upcoming season, what he needs to do to create some continuity and cohesiveness with his wide receivers / tight ends, so on and so forth, and running backs. And he's intent on doing all that he can to try to help this organization and help himself be in a position where he can step in as a starting quarterback next year, if that is in fact where this whole thing is headed. Let me see. Got a whole lot swirling around Zach Ertz. Many people feel like Zach Ertz is, pretty much has played his last down as a Philadelphia Eagle. There's some conversation from reports with the Seattle Seahawks have shown some interest. The Chicago Bears have shown some interest. I think that, there's some conversation about Jason Kelce is contemplating retirement at this point in time. I think that, a lot of these older players are looking at the circumstances and they're looking at Carson and they're trying to decipher what it is that's going on and what their next move is. I don't know that there's a whole lot to decipher. If you go back and you listen to, the rhetoric that Jeffrey Lurie put out there, basically Doug Peterson was fired because there was a difference of opinion and focus and philosophy as to where the football team was headed. Doug Peterson, obviously, after 5 years and winning the Super Bowl with this football team, wants to retool this football team and try to get to a place where they can become competitive right away. Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman are at a point in time right now where they feel like, hey, we've had our window, and I think every team has its playoff / Super Bowl window. The Eagles have spent the last 5 years, for lack of a better term, mortgaging their salary cap to be in a position where they could continue to compete for Super Bowls, aka the new normal. But a series of injuries throughout the last 2.5, 3 years, inconsistent play, inconsistent play calling, coaching, whatever you want to have it. I think that they've pretty much reached the point where they're in rebuild mode. Now, an organization is never going to come out to you as fans and tell you that, hey, we're rebuilding. But when you begin to listen to the rhetoric and you listen to the wordplay and you listen to the things that GMs and owners say, when they talk about transition and they talk about retooling in that transition phase, then you can begin to understand, exactly what they're saying is, hey, we have, reached the point of no return as far as trying to retool this team from season to season because of where we sit cap space wise. The Eagles, I believe, rank sixth to last, I want to say, in cap flexibility. Don't quote me on that. I could be off by a position or two, but they're minus, I want to say, about $60 million against the cap. So that means that the organization has got to look at, how they reconfigure this football team, and that's going to mean that there's going to be a lot of people, a lot of guys that's been an integral part of this football team for the last 5, 6, 7 years that will no longer be on this roster because they've got to figure out how to get themselves out of cap purgatory, and then how to rebuild the organization step by step, piece by piece, in a way that will allow them to be competitive. Now, I don't expect for them to be competitive this upcoming season with all the changes that they're going to have to undergo. But at the end of the day, listen, they got 16 games waiting for them, the first week of September. They're going to have to play the season. There's no getting around that. But at the end of the day, this football team will look markedly different. The talent level probably won't be where it needs to be when the 2021 season rolls around. Just from a pure perspective that, when you're rebuilding a team, rebuilding an organization, the first thing you do is you start with the youth. And when you can't get the youth on board from the standpoint of getting them prepared, getting them coached up, getting them ready, it always takes time. That's why, when you look at good teams have a good mixture of young players, middle-aged players, and sprinkled in with a few older players. That allows, the young players the opportunity to grow and learn and get experience, through the eyes of the older veterans and the middle-aged guys. And that allows them to learn faster and bring them along a little quicker. I have the feeling that, the Eagles are one of the oldest football teams the last 2 years in the NFL. And I think we're pretty much in a space right now where the Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to go extremely young. And if they have to go extremely young, then that's going to mean that there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be a lot of young guys on the field. There's going to be mistakes. The communication piece of all of that is going to be problematic. Still trying to learn a new offense and a new defense and a new special team scheme and what that means to the young players on this roster. You have the uncertainty that comes along with that from the perspective of, you got young players with young coaches, and some of these coaches are inexperienced. So that learning curve is going to be extremely steep in year one. You have the uncertainty of COVID, not knowing, what the OTA situation is going to look like, not only for the veteran players and the middle-aged players that remain here that are going to go into the offseason trying to learn these new systems. But how often post-draft, the guys that you do draft, when can you bring those guys in? When are they going to get a look live on the field with the rest of their guys as to what this team is going to look like and how it's going to feel, and how do you build the kind of continuity that you need to build? I just know, as an older player, I know the longer I got into my career, the more important it was for me to be in a situation where we could be successful, where we could challenge for championships, where we can actually, be in a position to win a championship. And I think that, as time goes on, we're going to begin to see guys who are in position where they're straddling the fence, like a Zach Ertz, maybe even like a Jason Kelsey, kind of request. This is like the newfangled deal where players, aren't holding back. They're going to organizations flat out and just telling them, hey, I'd like to move on. I need to be in a situation that affords me an opportunity to win. I've played in the league X amount of years, and if we're truly in rebuild mode, then this isn't a situation, that bodes well for me. I've got to figure out, how to do whatever's best for me to be in a situation where I can be successful. And right now, everything is up in the air as far as, that's concerned. I've seen some reports, the Eagles wanting a first-round draft pick for Carson Wentz. Let's talk about, that. I think that there's a lot of people out there that believes in the potential of Carson Wentz. When you look at the Stafford Goff trade, I think that the Rams were willing to give up the type of draft capital that they were willing to give up because, Matthew Stafford for the last 12 years has been a proven commodity. I think every single time that Matthew Stafford steps on the field what you're going to get. Matthew Stafford, like Barry Sanders, realized and Megatron realized that, hey, this organization hasn't been or is not committed to winning in the way that's necessary. So Matthew Stafford wanted out, and I guess the Lions, understanding that that there was a market for Matthew Stafford's talent, and they went out and secured some first-round draft picks and second-round draft pick or a third-round pick, and they got tremendous value for a guy that wanted out. When you look at Carson Wentz, he hasn't said anything about what he wants to do, but it's pretty evident that he doesn't want to be here, be it, because of Howie Roseman, or be it because of, his relationship with the organization, or his relationship with, various players, or his relationship with the city. Maybe he's soured on that. Who knows? But the question is Carson Wentz really worth a first-round draft pick? I would venture to say that, that's something we all need to ponder, think, and contemplate. Because at the end of the day, I think that if there was an organization out there that felt like Carson Wentz was worth a first-round draft pick, that the Eagles would already have received an offer for his services. I don't think he is, to be honest with you. Listen, let's go back and let's chronicle the journey of Carson Wentz. He's drafted number 2 overall. When the Eagles draft him, they say that Sam Bradford is going to be the starting quarterback. Carson Wentz is going to sit for the year. And then there was a need for Sam Bradford by another organization that was willing to give Howie Roseman some significant draft capital. So the move was made. Carson was elevated to the starter. And 2016, it was a challenging year. I believe the Eagles went 7-9. Carson had his struggles. The entire team had their struggle. And then all of a sudden, they caught lightning in a bottle in 2017. Carson just has a hell of a year. He's really in position to be the MVP of the league. And I believe in week 12 or 13, he tears his ACL and LCL, and it just turns into one of those situations where, okay, Nick Foles takes over. He takes the team to the Super Bowl. And then the next thing you know, he wins the Super Bowl. Not only wins the Super Bowl, but, is the Super Bowl MVP. I can imagine the place that Carson was in at that point, just from the standpoint of knowing that he's the franchise guy. His backup has just won the Super Bowl, is the MVP. He's beloved in the city of brotherly love. And right then and there's a divide in the locker room because you've got some Foles guys, you got some Wentz guys. It's no different than, in the city and in the media. There were some Foles guys and there are some Wentz guys. And then all of a sudden, Carson comes back from the injury. They rush him back in 2018, in my opinion. I felt like, they should have really held him off, until maybe week 8 or so. But they bring him back. He injures his back. They put him on the shelf for the rest of the season. Nick Foles takes over. And then they come back the following year. And Carson, gets through a 16-game schedule in 2019. None of those years, in my opinion, were extremely, excellent or elite, to say the least. What he did do in 2019 was take a bunch of young guys off the practice squad that was really interested in trying to find their way in the league because opportunity was there for them. And he won the last 4 or 5 games of the year, got the team into the playoffs, and then got hurt again in the playoffs. And so when you consider all of those things, we can say his development has been arrested because of the injuries. We can talk about the lack of talent that's been around him or the lack of the ability of coaches and their talent to develop players around him. We could talk about Doug Peterson's play calling and how, substandard, those have been throughout that time period. But then we march into 2020, and with high expectations once again, Carson doesn't have a mediocre year. He has a god-awful year. I think he ranked 34th out of 41 quarterbacks in the NFL in 2020, tied for the lead in interceptions, led the league in sacks in 11 and a half games, and just looked like a shell of himself. So if what you put on the field from year to year is an indication of what your value is, when you look at the long-term prognosis of, what Carson Wentz has been, I'm of the opinion no team out there sees him with first-round value because they just don't know what they have. They don't know whether they can fix him. They don't know whether he can be Carson Wentz of 2017 pre-injury, or they don't know whether they can get him back to, feeling comfortable, feeling confident, playing the game, the way that he knows how to play the game. And with that being the case, we find ourselves in a situation where no one's in a hurry to, make a landmark move for Carson Wentz. And if the Eagles, I guess the question is, if all this out there for the Philadelphia Eagles is, what's been reported through the Indianapolis Colts, a second round and a second round, do the Eagles just take that, or do they wait for a better situation? Now, the problem with waiting for a better situation before I bring my guest in is if you wait too long and all these teams that need quarterbacks, and there's a dearth of quarterbacks that are available at this moment, if those teams make the decision that if we can get these other guys cheaper, then we prefer to go in that direction. If we don't have to give up a first-round draft pick to satisfy our quarterback needs, then you're going to get to a position, especially once you get to the pre-draft time frame, that teams are going to be like, okay, we've moved on. We got our guy. We've got draft picks. We can improve the team through the draft pick, or we can get a quarterback in the draft. We're going to move on from Carson Wentz. Now the Eagles are stuck with Carson Wentz for the 2021 season. He's forced to go into a competition with Jalen Hurts. And if Jalen Hurts wins the competition, how do you now have this scenario where you had the Foles-Wentz dynamic in 2018 and 19? Now you just recreated it just like that all over again between Jalen Hurts and Carson Wentz. Okay. Joining me now is my friend. When we played, he was my foe. You guys know him from the Buffalo Bills. He is a Hall of Fame wide receiver, great receiver. I played against him, tried to take his head off a couple of times, but he was good enough to avoid me. But I want you guys to welcome my good friend, Andre Reed, Hall of Fame wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills. Dre, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I finally figured out this stuff, man. I'm telling you, it's me and phones and computers we don't go together. But it's good to be on your show, man. I'm just listening to you. You speak knowledge, man. I mean, there's plenty of teams that got maybe something similar, if not the same as the Carson Wentz drama in Philadelphia.
Right.
This whole league is built and predicated on that guy, on that quarterback. And if you don't have that guy, then it seems like all this other stuff comes into play with your team, with the GM, with the coach, with other players, who you sign in, here's the cap, all that. So it's similar to something with the Cowboys too, with Dak Prescott, because they're in a situation too now. What do they do with him? They've been messing with Dak Prescott for how many years now? 3-4 years? More than that? So do they take the hit with him just like the Eagles can take the hit with Carson Wentz. And do I think that new coach is going to be able to keep Carson Wentz and have him battle with Jalen Hurts for that #1 spot? And I think the one thing you said, you hit it on the nose. It's a Nick Foles thing all over again for them in Philadelphia. Regardless of who's catching the ball, who's running the ball, he's that guy, and their team is going to go around what that guy does. That's just my view on what the Eagles have to do coming up in 2021.
Andre, give me your thoughts about the new NFL. During our time, guys and specifically quarterbacks, they were never in a position, nor would they ever, publicly or openly request trades and request outs and request the things that we're seeing. We see it across the board. Russell Wilson's unhappy, and he hasn't asked to be out. But I believe that people are making more of that than necessary. What Russell's asking is, go get me some damn offensive linemen, so I don't have to run all over the place. When I think about Deshaun Watson is looking at an organization that is stuck and mired in ineffectiveness, inability to do what's necessary to build a good team, to build a good organization, an organization that is basically fallen all over itself. And he's made the decision that he no longer wants to be there. Andre Johnson came out a couple of weeks ago and pretty much said, hey, stick to your guns, because the organization doesn't have the ability to build the way that they need to build. And I'm a living example that they will waste your prime years, if you don't move on and get out of there. Matthew Stafford going to the Detroit Lions and pretty much saying, hey, I'm done. I want out. And them acquiescing and pretty much, making a landmark trade to move him on and bring in Jared Goff on the swap. It's just a new age, man, with these guys, JJ Watt, been with the Texans for 10 years. He goes in, hey, time out. I'm done, And the crazy thing with me about JJ Watt is they just cut him and released him. They just let him go. My thing is, why wouldn't you trade him? Why wouldn't you trade him and get some draft capital for him?
It seems like, the word leverage always comes up in these kind of situations. Ever since the NFL came into existence in 1920, it's all about the owners having leverage against the players having leverage against the owners. And it seems like always the top guys that are making the most money, that's where really the leverage of the whole team comes in. And it seems like all the guys underneath them are the guys that, whether they're playing at their top level or not, they're the ones that are going to take the brunt of that leverage, whatever that leverage is for that player. And I think Deshaun Watson is probably the best example because he has leverage. Dak Prescott has leverage. Even Jerry Jones said, yeah, he has leverage. I mean, Jerry. We know Jerry. We don't know what he's going to say. But it's all about the player getting the leverage, not against the team, but where he feels comfortable, where if something does happen, he has enough, he has that leverage to go wherever he needs to go. And it seems like you said, in our day, leverage was a lot different because you either were there or you weren't. And if you don't want to be there, they didn't do all this other stuff that they're doing now. They didn't try to move this guy and do this guy. If you counted it too much against the cap, you were gone. Bye. No matter who you were. And the old NFL used to be like that. The new NFL, because it's a different league. And you know that, Seth, it's different than when we played. You had your star guys, and those guys really were the meat and potatoes of the team. Now, everybody else coming in, here's what you get. You got to work your way up. And then if it doesn't go right, maybe those guys at the top can take a cap hit for you to stay or for somebody else to stay so they can create capital to sign other guys. I've noticed that over the last 25 years of watching the game now. I've been out 25 years. And we were just a bunch of happy dudes, man. We were happy. We were happy guys to even be there. And if we played well, we thought we figured we were going to get compensated the way we should if we played well.
Well, listen, you were in the league at the time. I struck in, it was 1987, for Plan B, which then translated itself into, free agency down the road.
Yeah.
I'm all for guys making as much money as they can. Football is the one sport out of the four major sports that doesn't have guaranteed contracts. And I'm for guys being able to get what they want and get what they deserve, because I don't think anybody's body goes through more from a physical standpoint than a professional football player, especially when you play 10 years or more.
Right.
Has the money changed the game? Because, I talked about it a couple of weeks ago on the show when all these quarterbacks started requesting trades and so on and so forth. Has the money changed the game? Because, Magic ran a coach out of LA that precipitated, them going on winning, championships.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people talked about, the money in the NBA at that time, that, Magic not only was more valuable to the team than the head coach, but Magic made more money than the head coach. Yeah. So the head coach was disposable. Are we starting to see some of that leak over into the NFL at this point in time?
I think you're in a way, yeah. Because look at Patrick Mahomes. He had a $500 million contract. What does that really translate to for the league? Not only is it an astronomical number for a player, but you mentioned Magic Johnson said he was making more than the head coach, or than the head coach, or not the owner, but he was making more than the head coach. I see football going that way, because if you keep having $500 million contracts, the next guy that comes up for a contract, you look at Josh Allen in Buffalo. It's a prime example. He had a great year. He was stat-wise, he was, in the top 5 in stats and yards, touchdowns, and all that kind of. He was second in MVP this year, voting next to Aaron Rodgers. So he's due for a payday whenever. And I guarantee you they're probably going to do something before the year happens in Buffalo for him. So then who's going to be the next guy? And then the next guy and the next guy. So the money, there's more money, definitely more money than it was when we played. With TV revenue, with all that kind of stuff, that's where the money is. It's in TV. And the guys have to not only take advantage of that right now, but in 10 years from now, will it be the same? Will football be the same 10 years from now from a business standpoint? Because that's really what it is. It is a business. That's yet to be known, but it's moving towards that way where I don't know if the word conglomerate really is the right word, but the NFL is a conglomerate. It is a big business. That's what it's going to turn into, a Google, and it's going to turn into an Amazon Prime. It's going to turn into that if it hasn't already.
Well, listen, they're already, a $12 to $15 billion a year industry to begin with.
Yeah.
I say that, they continue to grow. This year is an anomaly year because, this will probably be the first time since 1993, that 1993 being the first year of true free agency, that you're going to see the salary cap go down. And it's because of COVID. It's not because of marketing. It's not because of, the NFL losing fans. It's for no other reason than COVID alone, because of the resources that were lost in parking and stadium attendance and concessions and memorabilia. The owners are going to lose a significant amount of money, from that. So the cap is going to go down. But Dre, if you go back and you look at the NFL from its inception of free agency to the point of where they are right now, I tell people all the time, I was in the second class of free agents. Reggie White was in the first. He left Philadelphia in 93. I left in 94, I want to say. Okay. That year, the salary cap was $32.5 million for the same 53 guys.
Wow.
Okay. What people don't realize is this past year, the salary cap was almost $200 million for the same 53 guys. So you can see the exponential growth of the NFL. And if someone believes that, no matter what it is, if it's social justice, if it's equality, if it's kneeling, no matter what it is, the NFL has a way of reinfusing itself, if you will, with youth. So for all of those people that said, "Oh, they're kneeling, I'm done with the NFL," there's a whole nother generation of youth that's coming behind you, that won't buy into that are going to become new fans. So when you look at the economics of it, you can put the NFL up next to the stock market, man. And the NFL is outperformed the stock market because the stock market has done this, year over year. It has its cycles, it's ups and downs. The NFL's been like this for the last 30 years, man. So the dollars are going to continue to grow. Quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes are going to continue to set the bar. Let's say Josh Allen wins the Super Bowl next year. He's going to feel as though he should be in the same ballpark as a Patrick Mahomes, that he should be making $40 million plus a year, that he should get this 10-year, $500 million contract. Okay. Then the next quarterback comes along. It's the same situation because how the negotiations go. What teams do in the negotiation process is they take you as a player and they put you up against someone who they think is similar. And then they like to compare, the numbers, and they like to compare, the production, and they like to compare, and then they'll say, "Oh, well, you guys are similar. This is what we think you're worth." Okay. Yeah. So as the numbers financially continue to grow, the salary cap, in my opinion, will continue to grow. The unique thing about the NFL, Andre, is that, what? We're not like the Major League Baseball. We're not like NHL. We're not like NBA. We got 16 games every year. If you don't think that people are going to be clued in for 16 weeks because they know that they got to wait they got to wait till the next September to be able to watch football again.
Right. They're tripping right now.
Oh, absolutely. As soon as the Super Bowl was over.
Yeah, they're crazy right now. And all the guys, all the other athletes I talk to, baseball, basketball, some hockey guys, what they love to compare is, well, we play 82 games. We play 62 games. We play another 85 games. But guess what? We play 16. That equals that, if not more. And it's funny how they talk because they think because they play so many games that it's a different ballpark when it comes to their sport, what they do and what we do. And of course, I try to knock them down a few pegs in that. But it's you're right. It isn't going to do this. It's going to keep going up because the generation behind the generation behind the generation is going to set the bar for that. And that's just the way it is. That's just like that's economics, I guess. I don't know.
Hey, listen, it's like Philadelphia and Buffalo are alike in the sense that, I spent 6 weeks in Buffalo on a coaching intern. I know that Buffalo's got some rabid fans. Okay. From the time you come out the womb, you're wrapped in a Buffalo Bills blanket. So it's the same situation in Philadelphia.
It ain't no joke, bro.
That tradition is passed along, so the fans aren't going anywhere. The growth isn't going anywhere. Yeah. I mean, you touched on Josh Allen, phenomenal year. In my opinion, one of the greatest transformations year to year for a quarterback that I've ever seen. Yeah. After 3 years, he's now in that spot, and I heard you say you believe that they're going to do something, as far as his contract is concerned.
Yeah.
My worry is, when I look at a guy like Carson Wentz, because Carson Wentz had one of those years in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. and then injuries, in my opinion, arrested his development. But the team still looked at him like he was a proven commodity before he was proven to be a proven commodity. When I look at Josh Allen, he struggled the first 2 years, and all of a sudden the light went off this year, and it seemed like everything he did was the right thing. Okay, he's just finished year 3, going into year 4. Do the Buffalo Bills, is it wise for them to renegotiate after year 3, or understanding that you can exercise a fifth year option within the framework of his rookie deal? Do you let him prove it, in 2021 before you actually make that move? See, you mess with. I told you guys he was technologically challenged. Messing with his screen, he just cut himself off. Hopefully, I get him back here in a second because I really want his response as far as Josh Allen is concerned and where the Buffalo Bills are at this time.
1 second.
There you go.
All right.
So I just, I make the comparison because the Philadelphia Eagles made the decision after year 4, even coming off the injury, to extend Carson Wentz. $128 million 4-year extension. And then he proceeded to step into 2020 and have the worst year of his career. Josh Allen, after a great 3rd year, is now in that position. And you're not the first person that I've heard say that, that they probably should do something now. Now I follow Joe Banner. Joe Banner used to be the GM for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he always says it's a good deal to get these quarterbacks re-upped, as early as you can because you're getting ahead of the market. Well, Patrick Mahomes has set such a market that it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's going to be 35 to 40 million a year for him. That's just what it's going to be. And it doesn't matter whether you do it this year or whether you do it next year. My question to you, do they do that now? Or do they wait and wait and see, and let's see whether he proves that, that this year wasn't an anomaly?
And guess what? That happens probably all the time with quarterbacks that have great years, and then Dak Prescott. Same thing. These quarterbacks have these great years, and then something happens, they get hurt, and then all the people jump on his back. Oh, you got paid this. He'll add it. He paid you all this money, and you're not the same player. That could be at any position, but the quarterback position is a little different because they tend to re-up the guys right away, like you said. Whether or not they do it this offseason or whether or not they do it right before the season starts, or they start talking, about a contract extension or whatever, they're going to have to do it sooner or later. So like you said, it doesn't matter if they do it now or they do it. They're not going to wait another year. He's in his 4th year. He's going into his 4th year, I think, next year, right?
Mm-hmm.
4th or 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So that is, he, as a quarterback, he has proven that he's taken his team to the championship, 1 game away from the Super Bowl. And statistically, he has every year till to this year, in this year, he has improved in everything, in completion percentage, touchdowns. He's always run the ball. He had like 8 touchdowns on the ground. So it all sets up for him to get an extension. Now, whether or not he lives up to that, you could talk about like I said, every GM with everybody saying, if he doesn't have the same year he had the year before, was that contract really worth doing?
Mm-hmm.
But he is the franchise. They don't have anybody else. And in Philadelphia, it's a different situation with Carson and Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts could run that offense. Now, have they changed the offense enough where they're going to use his skill set, Jalen Hurts' skill set, because he runs around a little bit more? I don't know who's the offensive coordinator in Philadelphia right now.
He came over from the Chargers. He's on the Chargers staff. I forget his first name. His last name is Steichen.
Oh, okay. So they have to think about their jobs too. So how do I get the best out of Jalen Hurts and his skill set so we can move forward as an offensive squad. I'm sure they're thinking about that right now, depending on what, whatever Carson Wentz. And I listened to you earlier. Carson Wentz is going to be there. He's going to be there. I don't think they're going to trade him this offseason. That's just my thing. I think we're going to get a lot of rhetoric and hear a lot of things, but I think they want to have a quarterback competition there in Philly and see who wins the job. But one thing about it is that does something to your football team too, especially when a guy like Carson Wentz hasn't played that MVP football he had 2-3 years ago, before the knee injury, before the back, before all that stuff. So that'll be interesting to see how Philadelphia goes about it this year with them two. But I don't think they're going to trade him before the season starts.
Well, I think that they run a monumental risk if they don't figure out how to get him out of town if he wants to. It's one thing to incur a $34 million cap hit this year, whether you keep him or whether you trade him. It's a whole nother thing to not move him, have Jalen Hurts win the starting job, and then turn around going into next year in the 2022 with everybody knowing that you have to move him. Now you've moved from a situation where the Colts maybe could potentially be offering you 2 second-round draft picks now to somebody saying, "Hey, we'll give you a 4 or 5 for him."
I think that's the key, really. I mean, would he be a perfect fit in Indianapolis? I think I said something to you last night about it. I think he would be maybe not the perfect fit, but he knows a lot of people there. He knows Frank. He knows his system, whether it's the same system or not. I think he would feel comfortable in Indy. Indy needs a quarterback. So that would be a pretty nice, team for him to go to. Whether or not that happens, like I said, I think you're absolutely right. Are they going to incur that $34 million cap hit and not trade him, or trade him now and then kind of just wait and see what happens? I don't know. You're
watching the Seth Joyner show with my guest today, Hall of Fame wide receiver Andre Reed. Andre, listen, I want to ask you about quarterback comfortability. I had Marcus on last week, and we talked about quarterback leadership. He gave a great analogy of, Joe Montana. We seem to be in an era now where quarterbacks have to feel comfortable with an organization. That the organization almost has to tell them, "Hey, you're our guy," that they got to pat him on the back at every turn. The situation in Philadelphia, I think that, Carson said when he got benched, "I thought it was my team." I thought that was very telling because, the NFL is all about competition. The quarterback is the one position, especially if you're a top 5, top 10 draft pick, but there's really no competition. Sooner or later, you're going to play. And the only way you're going to lose your job is that you just stink, that you just stink it up. That's the only way you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking at Carson and his desire to get out of Philadelphia and his desire to be somewhere else, the question is, is it rooted in just that he's had enough of Philadelphia, the media, the fans, and Howie Roseman? Or is it because Nick Sirianni, the new head coach, said, "Hey, we're going to bring both of these guys in and have them compete," and that he wants no part of that competition?
I think it's both. And as a competitor, and especially in that league, you got to be able to deal with competition. If that's what the coach is going to do, that's what the head coach and the offensive coordinator is going to do. I think Carson Wentz's pride right now is a little shaken because of the injury and because of what happened last year. He hasn't played his best football, no doubt about it, in the last 2 years. And guess what? You can't blame everything on injuries. You can't, because if you're out there and they're expecting you to be the leader of that team, they're expecting you to play well. And you can't really say that, because of my knee and an injury the year before, that's neither here nor there when you're out there. But it's going to be a decision. And again, I think they're both going to be in training camp this year. And, most teams like to see competition. And unless the owner and the GM really get into an argument to a certain point about, what can we get for him if we trade him and all that kind of stuff, I'm sure that's on the table. But, when a new head coach comes into the team, he wants to be the big dog on the hill. And he wants to make the decisions of what he thinks is right for the team, whether or not the GM cares about it or not, and the owner. So he feels that he can make that decision by himself. So it'll be interesting to see, man, in Philly, what's going to go down there.
It's a unique situation in Philadelphia because Nick Sirianni is a guy who has no head coaching experience.
Yeah.
Doug Peterson had no head coaching experience. Howie Roseman was just coming off of, when he hired Doug Peterson as the head coach, the situation where Chip Kelly had him banished to the back of it. So, in my opinion, Howie's never going to hire a head coach, who potentially could want to do a power grab that supersedes his power grab and puts him back in a situation that he was in when Chip Kelly was the head coach.
Yeah.
I don't see Nick Sirianni being that guy. And then I've also heard reports that, hey, Howie Roseman is going to be in charge of the roster and game day activations.
Mm-hmm.
How in the heck is the GM supposed to be in charge of those things? If you're the head coach, you're the one that should be making those decisions, not the GM. They hired you to coach. So you should be the one saying, okay, I need these 48 guys active on game day. Okay. You can deactivate these 5. But Howie Roseman is going to say, okay, here's the 48 guys you work with this Sunday. To me, that makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So no matter what it is that Nick Sirianni wants, Howie Roseman is the dude that's pulling all the purse strings in Philadelphia. If Carson Wentz is going to be gone, if the owner wants him gone, he's gone. Okay.
Straight up. Yeah.
Now, and so therein lies the problem, because, what if he does go to Indianapolis and he has a subpar season, and now Indianapolis is on the hook for the remaining 3 years of that contract. Okay.
Because they're going to have to take a hit.
After a substandard year, they go into next year's draft, 2022 draft, and say, hey, we need to draft a quarterback for the future. Now, Carson Wentz finds himself in that same competitive situation that, to me, he's trying to run from right now in Philadelphia. It's not a foregone conclusion that he's going to just move over to another team, and everything is going to fall in place for him. Okay. And if that's the case, now what? He wants to be traded somewhere else? He wants out again?
Yeah. And you said earlier, the Nick Foles and Carson Wentz situation was, it's kind of like that's happened this year, and it could happen again, especially if he gets traded. Like you said, he gets traded to a team like Indy, and he has that kind of year, and they say, well, he's not what we thought he would be. To a certain point, we got to draft somebody. They got to draft somebody anyway. The Colts. They don't have anybody. Who's their quarterback? Who is their starting quarterback right now without the draft? It isn't. Who's their starting quarterback?
What's the kid? Brissett. Brissett is the only.
Oh, Stepanowski?
No, Brissett.
Oh, Kobe Brissett.
Kobe Brissett. He's the only vet they got. And I would imagine there's probably some Colts fans somewhere that's hoping and wishing, Andrew Luck reemerges out of nowhere and just.
We all know that ain't happening. That ain't happening.
So let's segue, man. I got 2 more things, I want to get to with you. So Urban Meyer hires a strength coach that was fired in Iowa for some transgressions some racial issues, and he's not there a week before the outcry begins.
Right.
Especially from the Fritz Pollard alliance.
Wow.
They're a group that champions diversity in the NFL, and they came out and said that the hire was unacceptable. There's two things that I want to touch on here. The first part is Chris Doyle, was this coach. He gave his resignation under pressure, said he didn't want to be a distraction. But the truth of the matter is he never should have been hired. He shouldn't have been hired because of the track record that followed him. I mean, there have been players in the NFL that have done things that has never played another down in the NFL. So why is there, an exception for a coach at the collegiate level now to be brought over to the professional level, and we're supposed to look beyond that? Urban Meyer said, "Hey, I've known this guy, I vetted this guy, blah 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 blah." There's a problem for Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer could have pulled this off at Ohio State. He could have pulled it off at Utah. He could have pulled it off at the University of Florida. Okay, but he could not pull that off in Jacksonville.
He ain't gonna pull it off in the NFL. In the NFL
no,
period,
he can't pull it off in the NFL.
No.
So this is going to be a major adjustment for Urban Meyer, because, and this is the problem that I have with bringing extremely successful college coaches and inserting them into the NFL game, because he's going to, on some levels, and maybe even subconsciously, try to deal with on an NFL level, situations, how he would deal with it on a collegiate level, and it's just not going to work out.
Ain't gonna work.
And
that's,
even
that's
furthermore,
that's why Nick Saban left. That's why Nick Saban got out of Miami and went back to college coaching.
You know what shocks me the most, though?
You're dealing with grown men.
You know what shocked me the most, though, Andre? The thing that shocked me the most is that the NFL sat back and let him hire him. Where was Roger Goodell in this situation? Why didn't Roger Goodell step in and say, you know what? No, we're not doing that.
But Roger and Roger's a good friend of mine. Has he ever done that though? Has he ever stepped in on that kind of scale?
No, not on that kind of scale.
Yeah.
But he is the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to guys in the league that misstep. Okay, so if he can do that, then where was the outcry when Urban said that I'm going to hire this guy, and everybody knew his history?
Yeah,
the NFL just let it happen.
I'm sure Roger knew it then. He had to. If everybody else knew it, the head man knew that history too. So maybe we're seeing something, we're not seeing something that happened that, regardless of what happened, that Roger had something to do with it. You would think if the commissioner said something about it that we would know. He'd come out and say something. But as you said, Urban Meyer,
Dre,
I just don't see what his success rate is going to be. I don't care what team it is.
Move to your right, center yourself up. I can see more of your bust than I can see you. There you go.
Yeah.
I
I don't see where he is going to be that much of a difference maker with a team like Jacksonville. Because basically that's like a college team to me.
Well, my biggest thing was, when I saw all of this happen, it was almost an arrogance thing for me. This guy, he's got some issues. He's got some problems. The gatekeepers, of diversity, made a big stink of it. And Urban Meyer was like, man, you know who I am? I'm Urban Meyer. I do what I want to do. It was almost a bravado thing where, I vetted him. He's been a friend of mine for, 20-something years. He's never coached with me, but he's been a friend of mine. That kind of speaks to, if he's a friend of yours, what exactly are you saying? We need to
find out. We need to find out more then. We have to find out a little bit more about you.
Maybe. But
Maybe.
but my thing is, when he's allowed to, make a move like this, one of my guests, he just put a little something up here, and I wanna put it up here for everybody to see. Urban Meyer's already lost the team. Given more than 2 years, he goes on hands and knees back to the college game.
Yeah.
How does this affect his team?
Yeah.
Where 70% of his players are African American, and the
Yeah.
injustices and the things that this guy has done and how it's been targeted at African American players. What does that speak to his players?
And
From that
plus he didn't leave Ohio State on the highest of notes either.
right.
He had a little baggage there, and I think when this job came up with Jacksonville, do you think he jumped at it with 2 feet, or he just kind of he skipped into it?
Hey, listen, I don't know. I haven't seen what the contract details look like. But I read somewhere where he said, I need 10 to $12 million to take that job, and he's got the job. And you know how it is most of the time. When a coach or a player signs a deal, somewhere out there in the Ethernet, if you will, there's a trail of, this is X amount of years and X amount of dollars.
Oh yeah.
We haven't heard about that. So,
Oh, yeah.
you maybe you have a point there. Is it one of those situations where, did he take the job because he really, in his heart of hearts, did he really believe that he could turn the organization around? Or is it one of those situations like John Gruden? If you're going to give me $100 million for a 10-year contract, hell yeah, I'm taking it, because I want that $10 million every year.
Yeah. I mean, is Dabo Swinney next?
Well, I guess the question is, well, I think that we're in an evaluation point in time now where we're looking at some of these coaches that are supposed to be offensive savants, offensive gurus. Sean McVay is kind of shaking the entire NFL up from the standpoint that everybody thinks that he is this, this offensive mastermind, that he's doing something that's so different and so unique. When I watch those guys play, you know what offense they running? The K gun. That's what they're running. They ain't running nothing different. They're not running anything different.
I would give you an A+ on that one.
So at the end of the day,
they just don't have the running back.
Right. At the end of the day, they're not doing anything so different. They're not doing anything that's, the Philadelphia Eagles thought that Chip Kelly was going to come in and change the NFL. The NFL changed him and sent him packing, is what they did, because after 3 years, they figured out what he was doing, that it was no different than anything else that they saw, and they understood how to attack it. So what winds up happening is, and everyone's in search of this new offensive guru, this offensive mind, that changes. Man, all they did was take, the K gun, the run and shoot, the red gun, and they're implementing it on first down, and they're putting little wrinkles here and there, or they're taking the third down offense from back in our day and they're running it on first and second down. They're not doing anything different. So you don't even see defense coordinators get hired as head coaches.
I think the only thing probably
smile and be happy said, hey, Cliff Kingsbury. He says Cliff Kingsbury is doing well. Come on, man. Cliff Kingsbury's doing well. Doing what? Everybody thought that the Cardinals was going to make the playoffs last year, and they wilted down the end. Now, granted, Kyler Murray got hurt, but at the end of the day, Cliff Kingsbury is the next generation of offensive gurus that's supposed to come in and change the NFL. I don't see it.
But then again, you look at Kansas City. Okay, Andy Reid, he doesn't really call the plays. Eric Bieniemy calls the plays. Who should be a head coach? NFL's, definitely dropped the ball on that one. He should be a head coach somewhere. But what Kansas City does, same thing is that you keep people off balance, and then you have a quarterback that can make every throw, can make every throw and do all that stuff, and then you have fast guys on the outside, and you have a tight end that can catch the ball and run routes. That's Kansas City's offense right there.
Well, listen, in my opinion, it ain't no different than, the more the game changes, the more it stays the same. I think that these offensive coaches, what they're doing is they're attacking, defensive flaws. They're attacking technique because these players don't play with technique. That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're attacking known weaknesses, which has been a part of the NFL, offensive landscape forever. Okay. If I know that I've got an outside linebacker that's lined up on his right side and he's got the wrong foot up, hey, I can run a toss his way and get outside him every single time.
Right.
Okay. You know that if you line up, okay, you line up in the slot. Jim Kelly's looking at you. Okay. You know that you got the slot corner on you and he's lined up with inside technique. You see him line up inside. Jim sees him line up inside. Okay. So now what do? You just motion James Lofton to the other side and you got the out route, corner route all day long. Yeah. All you got to do is stem him one step inside and you got him all day long. That's pitch and catch.
And and the thing about that is too, when I came off the ball, most of the time I always tried to go opposite where I was going. So if he was inside, I tried to push at him inside as much as I could to make him think I'm doing that, regardless of what his technique was, outside, inside. I'm going towards the technique, which some coaches teach you go away from the technique to a certain point. So that was because we were so fast and so quick that, you had to know what you were doing. Like, people think football players aren't smart. That's a bunch of what. You had to know what you were doing out there, bro. Right. You ain't gonna catch the ball if you didn't know the technique, you didn't know what they were doing in the secondary, and you didn't know what some of the linebackers were doing, because they really dictated a lot of what you were gonna do.
Right.
So yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna be watching the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm really interested to see, how this all plays out and how this affects Urban Meyer's ability to do, what Shad Khan has hired him to do there. Listen, you guys, you're watching the Seth Joyner show with my guest today, Andre Reed. Andre, if you were on earlier, I would have touched on this before at the opening of the show, but I want to make sure that in closing today, we pass on our condolences to Vincent Jackson.
Yeah, man.
Passed away yesterday at 38 years old, a former Charger.
Great guy.
And Buccaneer. Man. I don't know all the details about, what transpired. I'll tell you, man, I just think back, in our day, and there's so many guys that we played with and played against that's no longer here for whatever reason. And I did a podcast not long ago with Aeneas Williams, and we talked about, the fallacy of being a professional football player and how we don't talk, and how a lot of times we don't even see each other until something tragic, has happened.
It's sad because right now, these are the forums that we need. Zoom calls and to talk about guys having their own little podcasts, and we talk about the state of the game and talk about us and talk about when we play. That's good for our soul, man. So I'm with you on that, bro. We got to continue to keep encouraging guys. If something's going wrong, to reach out. If something's not right, reach out, man. Reach out to the PA. Reach out. Like you said, I don't know what happened with Vincent and what was going on, but I think the last time I talked to him was about a year and a half ago. He had just retired with the Buccaneers. He played for the Bucs for, I think, 5 years. And, man, because of COVID, too, a lot of guys have passed because of COVID. 13 Hall of Famers died this year because of COVID. And, again, you didn't mention 3 of your teammates that, were good friends of mine, Reggie, Andre Waters, Jerome Brown. They were all good friends of mine.
Hey, listen, man, we just lost Wes Hopkins.
Wes, too. Wes Hopkins. Yeah. This game, people don't realize this game takes its toll mentally, physically on you. It ain't all written up to what you think, what you see on Sundays, because there's a lot that goes on in between those Sundays, especially after you're done playing the game. And I played 17 years. And Seth, how many did you play?
I played 13, man.
You played 13.
Yeah.
And we played in some brutal positions.
Yeah.
So I try to reach out to my brothers as much as I can. I think I need to do it more and make more effort through golfing and the things that we do, because it's a short life, man. It's very short. You just never know. And we gotta keep in arms, man. We gotta stay together.
No doubt about it, man. Before we get out of here, man, tell my viewers I want to make sure you promote what you're doing.
Yeah.
The Andre Reed Foundation, the golf tournament. Let everybody know what you're going on, where they can reach you, a website, a phone number, or something.
Yes, I now in my 5th year with the Read with Reed 83 program through my foundation. And what we do, I'll just briefly tell you guys what we do. We take kids to football games through the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. I was a club kid growing up, just like Shaq and Denzel and Jennifer Lopez, all these stars and athletes. They started somewhere. And if it wasn't for the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, I probably wouldn't be talking to Seth. I wouldn't be who I am. We think that because of what we did, we really don't, to a certain point, people don't realize that we needed a foundation to stand on to do what we did. And I had a lot of mentors, a lot of friends, a lot of people in my backyard really helping me out to be the person I am today. And I can't thank them enough for it. And the Boys and Girls Club definitely was a place that I felt safe and that I can go to every day. And I went almost every day for 10 years, from 6 years old to 16. And that's my passion. My passion is kids and inspiring kids to be the best that they want to be, and teaching them how important reading is, because not everybody is going to be pro athlete, but you can be an outstanding human being and serve your community. And that's really what my program is about. And they read books, and we take them to games, and they meet the players, they meet the owner, they meet the coaches before the game. So I'm so proud of that what we do. And also we have a golf tournament in Pennsylvania. Seth has been there a few times. Have a golf tournament May 3rd out here. We had it a couple months back. It was really toned down because of COVID, but it's just another way of me giving back, not only to my community, but to bring my guys together and have some fellowship and be together and, and just reminisce about a lot of things. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm very proud of that. So you can go to my Instagram at Andre_Reed83. That's my Twitter. That's my Instagram. www.arfoundation.org to find out what I'm doing with my program and to even donate to the cause. So I appreciate it.
All good, man. Brother, let me tell you, man, I tell my guests each and every week that, the most valuable commodity that we have is our time. I appreciate the last hour and 13 minutes of your time. It's been great to have you on. I know that my listeners that have tuned in, they've been blessed today by having you on. They enjoy the content and what you had to share. And more than anything, I'm glad to have you on, my brother.
Dude, you're my dude, man. We go back like DJs and PJs, man. And the old game, and I always tell Seth before we leave, we played the Eagles one year in Buffalo, and it was the #1 offense against the #1 defense. And it was a track meet up and down the field. And the Eagles defense was probably, to me, top 5 defense ever that year. Not only that year, but ever top 5 defense. And that's with the Bears and with the Bucks of a couple years back. And it was a battle. And it was a fun game to be a part of, one of the ones I remember the most. But I always respected number 59 as a player, but I respect him more as a person. And that's probably the most important thing. So big ups, man. Thanks for having me on the cast. And we will see you soon. I'm coming out to Phoenix March 3rd, man, to play some golf.
I'll be here. Just hit me up.
March 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
Text it to me.
I will. I definitely will.
So I can set some stuff up. I'm pretty sure you got something set up, but let's tee it and fellowship and hang out, brother. I appreciate
you. You got it.
Well, guys, that's my show for today. Thank you for joining the Seth Joyner Show. Don't forget, I will be posting a giveaway. I got a helmet, a mini helmet, and a autograph signed football that's going for our Seth Joyner Show giveaway. Going over to the Seth Joyner Show on Instagram. So
if you need anything, I got it for you, man. Jersey,
okay.
helmet, whatever.
All right. Well, hey, listen, when you come out, we'll talk about it. You can bring something, whatever it is that you want to donate, because there's a lot of Buffalo Bill fans on here. You know, you're a Hall of Famer, man. You know, they'll be falling all over themselves trying to get your stuff. But, you know, just make sure that you tune in. I'm on social media, YouTube, Seth Joyner Show, on Instagram, Seth Joyner Show, on Facebook, Seth Joyner Show, and then Seth Joyner on Twitter. Give me a follow once you see the promo. Add 3 people, you know, invite 3 people to follow the show on the various platforms. And on Friday, we will pick a winner, and we'll mail it out and get it out to you. That's our show for today. Like I always say, take care of each other, be good to each other, but most importantly, love each other. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace. Good job,